How many of you, at the end of a long day, have got home, you worked hard, and you felt like you didn't get anything done? Or you had a team meeting where you pulled out the great flip charts, you got the multicolored markers, you got the sticky notes, you brainstormed a great plan with your team, and at the next meeting, nobody did anything. I hate when that happens, especially to my team that I pay. Why is it so hard to take an idea to an action? For some, overwhelm or ambiguity or fear. One of the biggest barriers is actually a lack of clarity about the most important thing I can do today or tomorrow. Clarity's hard. I see it all around the world in our work. Companies think they're clear when they're not. Strategic plan, they think they're clear, they're not. Marketing companies think they're clear when they're not. Clarity's hard. Take a look at a couple clarity slides. These guys are clear. I like this one. Got a clarity. There are three most overlooked questions that actually lead to clarity, that leads to hope, that leads to action. The three questions might not be what you think at first. They're not the why, and there's a lot about the why right now, and it is great to have a strong why. In fact, if you don't have a strong why, you might not last 10 days on a project. The why inspires, the why unifies. But I have seen so many organizations have a great why, kumbaya, and not get anything done. It's not the who. And it's great to have the right who's on the bus, but I've seen some buses full of fun who's fail. The three questions that I'm talking about that actually drive clarity that leads to action, I've seen these three questions change the culture of organizations around the world. I've seen these three questions be used by a university football team to change from a season that was 3-7, regular season, to a 7-3 record the next year when they asked these three questions every week by individual player, by position, and by team. And for me, personally, when people ask me, how did I lose 52 pounds in about 5 months in 2011? It was not a healthcare idea. It wasn't a fitness idea. It was these three questions that changed my life. The three most overlooked, underused questions that actually lead clarity, that leads to hope that I can do it, that leads to action are, number one, how? Number two is even more important. How? And the most important question of all is, how? Ladies and gentlemen, from this day forward, you must ask how at least 3 times. How, how, how. People don't do it. They end meetings without having a final how. They waste all kinds of time because they don't have hope. They have ambiguity. They have frustration. They have fear because they don't ask until they get a final how. It might take 7 hows, by the way. How, how, how. You must ask how until you can come to something you or someone on the team will actually do today or tomorrow, and they always can ask how until that will happen. Always. Some of the biggest companies in the world, oh, we can't get that clear. We can't get that. They always can. Always. If they ask how enough, they can get there. How, how, how. 2 examples. First of all, a corporate example. We're working with one of the biggest healthcare organizations in North America, and they came to us and they said, David, we're losing funding, we're losing patients, we've had all these consultants in, but we haven't done anything differently. We are failing. After a half day of training, thought we need to actually get to something. So I asked the senior team, in fact, the senior most person, happened to be a gentleman. I said, what do you actually want to see different here? What do you think would help the most? And quickly he said, we want a better culture. I said, great. How are you going to start to see a better culture here? By the way, remember, this is the senior team. They've got the letters behind their name, PhD and CEO and ADD. They got it all. How are you going to have a better culture? Well, David, we like what you've said about clarity. We think we should be more clear. I said, great. How are you going to be more clear? Sat down, talked to his senior team. When he was ready, he stood up and said, we're going to communicate more. Do I trust him to do anything differently today or tomorrow? Or ever? No chance. Great. How are you going to communicate more? He sat down. He talked to his senior team. When he was ready, he stood up and said, we're going to hold each other accountable. After I choked on my tongue, I said, great. How? You all know what accountability is, but I'm telling you, around the world, people will have the value of accountability in their company, and they do not know what it means. I'll say, well, how do you value accountability? How do you actually do accountability? How do you hold someone accountable here? What do I often hear? Accountability stuff. We asked how 7 more times that day until every leader came up with something they could do today or tomorrow. And years later, they told us that was the tipping point that changed the brand of one of the biggest hospital systems in America, and you know the name. How? Stop having meetings where you don't ask how until someone will do something. Not everything, just something. Your final how must be so clear that it includes the who, when, and where if needed. You know, if it's you, you know it's you. You don't have to ask the who. But if it's in a team, or even if it's let's say I'm going to work out more. If I don't know when, 5:30 in the morning, I'm not doing it. If I don't know where, I'm either going to go to the gym or go for a run. I'll do neither. But if it's a team, you've got to come to a final who. Co-leadership on everything is terrible. Collaborative leadership is excellent. If you have more than one person on a final task, statistics say you have 50% less chance of it getting done. Your final how must have one person, one place, one time. How, until you can do something differently today or tomorrow. So, we'll get personal. My weight loss. Let's be clear. I am not a weight loss expert. I'm not a healthcare expert. This is not advice for you. Are we clear? Yes. HR? Clear? So this is just an idea, and we're all working on different things in life, so there is no judgment here, just to show how clear you need to be to change anything. Now I'm working on other things, so this is one idea just to show clarity, nothing else. So 2011, I knew if I was going to keep traveling a couple hundred flights a year, if I was going to be able to hang out with my kids, I had to do something about my weight. So I started asking people that have a lifestyle kind of like I do. I started asking people that have to be on planes, go to banquets, anybody that looked fit on the road. I said, how do you stay so fit on the road? Not creepy, how do you stay fit, but you know. I said, how do you stay fit? How do you stay fit? And what did they say? Around the world, they said the same thing. 4 words. Eat less, exercise. That was not clear enough for me. But how do you do it? How? So I asked how to people until I got a handful of ideas that I could act on starting today or tomorrow. And your final how has to be something you will do, right? If someone said to me, I'm never going to get to have ice cream again, I'm not doing it. So I asked how until it would be something I would do. First idea, or just one idea, so we can see this. I'll never forget this. After an event one time, a doctor came up to me, his wife next to him. They were at this side of the stage. I'll never forget it. They were 80 years old, fit as could be. I thought, I can learn something from this couple. Doc said, I don't know if you'll do this, Dave. It's just an idea. Most men in America, if they just wouldn't drink their calories, they could eat exactly the same and they'd lose 30 to 50 pounds in 1 year. My jaw dropped, even though I knew it wouldn't be true for me. And I I started thinking about alcohol. I never liked alcohol much. I don't have a legalism issue with it. That was not my issue. Then I started thinking, what about juice? Well, I grew up in northern Minnesota, where drink your orange juice, get your vitamin C, don't catch a cold. What did Doc say? You want to catch a cold? Drink juice, it's full of sugar. Eat a half an orange and drink some water. I haven't had juice for 7 years. What about soda? Those here are sophisticated, you call it soda. From Atlanta, you call it Coke, Coke, Coke. In Minnesota, we call it pop, because we can spell that. So I started thinking about this, and I said, my final how was I'm not going to drink a calorie, which I didn't for 6 months. The problem is, growing up in the poorest county, or at least one of the 2 poorest counties in Minnesota, which means we don't have a lake hardly, is that we didn't get to have pop growing up. The rich kids got to have pop. But growing up on that farm near Verndale, Minnesota, we didn't get to have pop except for maybe once every other year at the county fair. And you shared the can with all 6 kids. That's fun when it comes back around. That was special. We got to have pop. That was special. By the way, that kind of pop at the fair, it wasn't Coke and Pepsi like the rich kids, was it? What was it? Shasta! That's right. Nickel a can. That was so special to me when I started flying a lot. On the airplane I fly, the airline I fly on, I used to say Coke. 2 Cokes is a meal, Doc said. Well, how am I going to do this? Because when that flight attendant comes up to me and says I can have my very own can, I go back to childhood. I cannot say no. I'm automatic today. On the airline I fly on the most, Fresca, 1 out of 10, I'll say Diet Coke. What's the point? I look at a Fresca, how many calories in a Fresca? None. Diet Coke? None. I've asked how until I can act on it today or tomorrow. Now I know there's going to be someone at the back of the auditorium at the break saying, David, that's bad for you too. It's got aspartame, aspartame. I can't spell it, but it's got it. And you're probably right, but leave me alone. I had to make one change at a time. The point isn't anything except for you want to change anything? You want to take an idea to an action? You've got to ask how. You want to cut through ambiguity, cut through overwhelm. You want to move something forward. You want to even cut through fear. Ask how until there's something you can do today or tomorrow. So ask why, to unify people and motivate people. And ask who, to get the right people on the bus. But the only way to accomplish the why, with those great who's, is how. If we're ever going to take our ideas into action to change the world, we have got to ask how.